Welcome to Corporate Warrior, the podcast that brings you the best advice on how to improve your health, optimize performance, and maximize productivity. With your host, Lawrence Neal.
This podcast is brought to you by hituni.com. That's hituni.com. HitUni is an e-learning course provider specializing in high-intensity training for personal trainers and for people looking to learn how to apply the principles of HIT to their own training for best results. It comes highly recommended by Body by Science author Dr. Doug McGuff, Discover Strength CEO Luke Carlson, MedX Precision Fitness owner Blair Wilson, HIT expert Drew Bay, and the founder of Living La Vida Low Carb, Jimmy Moore. It was founded by author and high-intensity training master personal trainer Simon Shawcross. Simon has 15 years experience and has supervised over 15,000 workouts. Due to a combination of demand and a lack of quality in certification programs in the fields of high-intensity training, Simon and his team spent the last 3 years developing top-quality courses that will educate fitness professionals and participants to enable them to train individuals and themselves in the safest manner and produce best results. HIT Uni has been put together using knowledge from the very best minds in the field of exercise, including Skylar Tanner, James Steele, Dr. Doug McGuff, Drew Bay, John Little, Mike Mensa, Arthur Jones, Dr. Ellington Darden, and many more. The courses are delivered online through the website, where you can learn via a variety of multimedia materials at your own pace and convenience. The online video presentations are engaging and make learning fun. Online support and a discussion forum are provided to resolve any sticking points and enable you to share ideas and ask for help. Depending on whether you want to become a personal trainer, are already a personal trainer who wants to upskill, or if you're a keen HIT participant that is eager to learn more about how you can apply HIT to your own workouts for maximum benefit, there are several great value courses to choose from. I am personally partway through the PT course and I'm really enjoying it. I primarily wanted to do the course to learn more about how to apply HIT to my own training for better results. The courses are really easy to follow and each section is organized into bite-sized chunks that give you a real sense of achievement after you complete each one. To get your exclusive Corporate Warrior 10% discount on any course you purchase, simply head on over to hituni.com, that's hituni.com, and enter the coupon code CW10, that's CW and the number 10. So again, head on over to hituni.com, hituni.com, pick your course and enter the coupon code CW10. Thanks very much for your support. Hi guys, this is Lawrence Neal and welcome to another episode of Corporate Warrior, where it is my job to interview world-class experts on exercise, health, performance and productivity to identify the workouts, routines, habits, diets, philosophies, books, resources that you can use to significantly improve your effectiveness and efficiency in your everyday life. Guests include Body by Science authors Dr. Doug McGuff and John Little, exercise scientists Dr. James Steele and James Fisher, nomadic strength and conditioning guru Steve Maxwell, health and fitness CEOs, New York Times bestsellers, elite adventure racers, and much, much more. Today's guest is a serial entrepreneur, co-founder of PaleoFX, and strength and conditioning coach Keith Norris, who is coming on the show for a second time, but this time to talk about business. Why business? Well, it probably doesn't come as no surprise that business is an area that I'm very interested in. And moving forward, I will be interviewing more experts in this space as well as other spaces. But don't worry, I will always still be interviewing experts in exercise, diet, and health as well. Keith's very interesting to me because he runs 5 businesses quite successfully, but still manages to get an adequate amount of sleep and works out almost every single day. So he strikes me as being a bit of a very adept at time management to be able to do all those things quite successfully. I'm sure he's not always able to do those things, but it sounds like most of the time he's able to live a pretty healthy lifestyle whilst having quite a lot of business success in the process. Also, a big challenge, I think, for a lot of people is transitioning from the corporate life to becoming a business owner, especially when you have a family and other commitments like a mortgage, etc. So he's got some great advice on when to make the jump. So, there's these kind of conflicting views. Some people say, you should build the business on the side and then move away or move over to the new business when you make enough money, or you just take the plunge. So AKA jumping out of the plane and building your parachute on the way down whilst your savings run out. Or is that a false dichotomy? Well, if you listen to this, you will find out his views about that. Keith's got some great ideas and tools for time management, and we get into the nitty gritty around that. So, the type of software he uses, how he manages his time, all that kind of stuff, which I'm really geeky about and enjoy discussing. And he has some great advice on how to build effective teams, because he has actually some of the same people that help him with multiple businesses. It's not, his teams are not kind of siloed off into each different business that he's involved in. And we talk a little bit more about marketing a service-based business effectively as well. So this interview is a little bit different from my previous, and it's a bit of an experiment. So let me know what you think in the comments, because this will determine whether I do more in the future. All the show notes and links will be in the usual place on corpwarrior.com, corpwarrior.com, which will redirect you to 15minutecorporatewarrior.com. So without further ado, please enjoy this interview with Keith Norris. Is that a bulletproof coffee you got there, by the way?
Actually, it is not. It's just straight up black coffee.
Nice.
I'm drinking. I actually ate breakfast today. So that's just straight up black coffee, and I don't always eat breakfast. So it just so happened today I did. But
do you typically do intermittent fasting then on most days or some days?
Yeah. And I just intermittent fast as it comes about, and it works into my life. So I don't ever schedule it. Probably the only time that I think ahead and schedule an intermittent fast is if I'm traveling. And so I will pretty much fast the entire time I'm traveling most times, but otherwise I just play it as it comes.
Joe, I do have a question about that actually, which I wanted to ask you is, I think a lot of guys struggle with that. Okay, I want to do intermittent fasting, but I'm also appreciate the fact that I need to get a certain calorie surplus in order to gain muscular mass, right? So how do you work that together? Do you just make sure that you're getting enough calories in your lunch and your dinner and your evening meals? Is that basically makes sense?
That's what it boils down to. Yeah. So a lot of times too, you have to think if you're at different ends, right? So there's a big difference between trying to eat to put on mass and controlling your eating or adjusting your eating to lose body fat. And that's very difficult to do at the same time. I mean, for most people, it's extremely hard to pull off at the same time. So you either have to make a choice. Am I really trying to put on mass during this period? If so, intermittent fasting probably needs to take a back seat for this time period.
Right.
And then flip it around once you put on the amount of mass that you think is appropriate, and then you can flip around and go back to an intermittent fasting thing. But intermittent fasting and mass gain at the same time is hard to pull off for most people, unless you're just genetically gifted. And some people are genetically gifted and can get away with it. Most people are not.
Right. So you mean there are some people that genetics enable them to maybe operate on a calorie deficit and still gain muscle, so they can get away with that protocol?
Yeah. And maybe not even a calorie deficit, but relative to their intake, yes, it would be a calorie deficit. So they're able to draw from, whatever fat stores they have to be able to transfer that directly into muscle mass gain, which is, it's not unheard of. It happens. I mean, physiologically, it's not rocket science. It's not that difficult to figure it out. In pulling it off in real terms, it's very difficult to pull off unless you're just happen to be genetically gifted that way.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Cool.
And you won't know that until you start giving it a lot of this stuff. You won't know if you're genetically wired towards it unless you just know. I mean, some people, I can see some people walk through the door and you're like, okay, there's a freak. I mean, I see these people every now and again, right? They could eat whatever the hell they want, when they want. They can just kind of walk through the weight room and they're going to put on muscle mass. And some people are just wired that way. And 98% of the people out there are not wired that way. So,
yeah.
And I think too, you can't look to the people who are genetically gifted and get very much information out of them as far as to what's relevant in your own life. Because they within their bodies have changed all they've changed all the rules. It's such a genetic advantage that they don't have to quote unquote follow the same rules that the less advantaged follow. They don't, it just doesn't apply to them. So yeah, to look at somebody's eating habits who is genetically advantaged in that way and think that you're going to gain much in the way of knowledge applicable to yourself is just not, it's not realistic.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And you see that, with a lot of these genetically gifted athletes or former athletes promoting products and programs and stuff. And it works so well, but it's unfortunate that, people can't see past that. But it's the world we live in.
Yeah.
Mm. Right.
It's a whole marketing end of things, but yeah.
Indeed. Good stuff. Okay, so that was good, actually. Obviously, both of us love exercise and nutrition and fitness so much we could just probably do another 2 hours on that, but
sure.
So let's get into some business questions.
Sure.
So before, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but before becoming an entrepreneur, you had a career in the sort of pharmaceutical industry, which I understand it was more like a 9 to 5 or type of role. Tell me the story of how you made the jump from the corporate world into actually building your first business and thereafter.
Yeah, it like many people who have made the jump from corporate world to entrepreneurship, number one, I always had the entrepreneurial bug. And I felt very limited in the corporate world because I couldn't fully express that entrepreneurial itch. And like a lot of people, I was at that time caught in the vortex of having been in a very well-paying job for a long period of time and have kind of built my own prison in material goods, right? So I had the big house, I had the cars, I had, this, that, and the other, which meant I had to keep plugging away at the corporate job and keep climbing the ladder and doing, I fell into the whole trap at a fairly young age. And I wouldn't, I didn't go that route totally out of just pure wanton greed. I mean, I went into the pharmaceutical industry at a time when I truly thought that I was doing humanity a good service. I thought, this is an industry I can go into that really serves human needs very, very well. Number one. Number two, I can make a good deal of money at it, and I can provide for my family. Because at this time, I had 2 kids. By the time I left the pharmaceutical industry, I had 4 kids, and it's tough to make moves like that when it's not just you or your own island, right? When you have a family, that changes the game quite a bit because as an individual, I could take chances and fail, and I'd be fine, and I knew that. But taking chances and potentially failing when you have 4 or 5 other people depending on you, that changes the game quite a bit. So, long story short, my wife and I both had to wait till all of our kids were out of the house and doing their own thing, and then we felt that, and at the same time, we had saved enough money to where we could make the jump. And so it was a planned out process. I guess that's to say we didn't just wake up one day and say, okay, we're making the jump and let's do it. I mean, it was a long thought out process.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was the first business that you started, and was that with Michelle or?
Well, Michelle was a chef. We came to Austin, and being a chef in Austin it's kind of like being a musician in Austin, right? I mean, they're a dime a dozen. I mean, they're everywhere because all good chefs want to come to Austin. It's a foodie capital. It's much like Charleston, South Carolina, and some other foodie places in the U.S. It's just a high concentration of chefs, which is good. It's excellent networking opportunities, and yes, you can create employment for yourself. Michelle happened to go directly into the catering side of things, and she did very well doing that. I had been in talks with Mark Alexander of Efficient Exercise for maybe 6 months before I actually left the pharmaceutical industry and came on board. So my idea, my exit plan out of the pharmaceutical industry was either A, I was going to partner with somebody who I totally agreed with in philosophy, and this is in the strength and conditioning realm, or B, I was just going to go off on my own and create my own thing. I happened to come in contact with Mark Alexander and the Efficient Exercise crew, and I got in contact with Mark through Skylar Tanner, who you've had on your show a few times. Mm-hmm. And Mark and I hit it off very well. We had the same philosophies as far as creating a training entity and targeting the niche that we thought at that time was underserved, and that niche was the doctor, lawyer, entrepreneur who thinks that they don't have the time to train. It's a very good niche to get into. So anyway, I came in already partnered with Market Efficient Exercise when I made the jump. So I in some sense I had a safety net, so to speak. So I just didn't jump into the wild abyss without having a plan. I had a plan, but I always tell people, and I laugh about this, and it's so true, because every excellent coach that I've been around, every excellent CEO that I've been around and had contact with, all the smart entrepreneurs, they always have a plan, but they're always ready to pivot in a second if that plan goes astray. Always. And they might not even know what plan, quote unquote, plan B is going to be, but they're open to other ideas. They're just not married to that one single idea that they dove in with. They're able to pivot. If they see the original plan going south, they'll pivot in a heartbeat and take another route. And I've seen this in the best coaches I ever played for were that way. You go into a game with a game plan. If the game plan starts to go south, there's no use crying about it. You've got to make a change right now and go somewhere else, given the talent you have on the team. A lot of people are not that way. A lot of people have, I don't know if you've heard the kind of the metaphor of the hedgehog and the fox. Have you heard? I don't know if you know this.
Continue. I think I may. But.
So, okay. In general, the deal is a hedgehog has one big idea, and the hedgehog is just that one big idea is what carries him, and he won't deviate from it. He just has this one thought, this one idea, and he is adamant about making that idea work. The fox, on the other hand, he doesn't have one big idea, but what he knows a little bit about a lot of various things, and from these various things he'll cobble together game plans, and he's very shifty, and he'll change on a dime, and he'll shift. And the old argument is always back and forth. Well, which is best? What's the best philosophy to take? And my philosophy has always been that of the fox. I don't have one big idea that I'm married to. I take the Bruce Lee approach, and I take what is I take what's good, and I discard what I don't need. So in saying that, I'm able to shift on a dime. Michelle and I both are that way. So we came in with a game plan, yes, but we pivoted many, many times in the last 5 years to get where we are today.
Right. Okay. Did you, just regarding Efficient Exercise, did you found the business with Mark, or did he bring you on? How did it work?
So at the time that I came on, Mark was in the past. The business had been going for, let's see, when I came on, so maybe 8-ish years, and they had been primarily a super slow ideology.
Okay.
When I came on, I had different ideas of how to leverage a 30-minute workout. And those ideas deviated from super slow, and they went more towards a high-intensity interval resistance training thought pattern. So Mark was already established, but I came in and said, if I come on, I would like to see the entity shift this way. And let me back up by saying that when I had the idea of starting my own type of business, that's what I had in mind. I didn't come in with the idea that I wanted to train athletes. I had done that before, and I thoroughly love training athletes. But, at the end of the day, when you train an athlete, and we kind of use this metaphor that really all you're doing is you're putting spinners on a Ferrari. I mean, they are already highly, highly trained individuals. They're already, phenomenon. All you're doing is just putting sparkle on what's already there. And that's cool to see. I mean, all mechanics want to work on Formula One cars, right? I mean, that's just really cool to be around. But at the end of the day, and I had trained many, many, many athletes, and that's satisfying to an extent. But the people that I had trained that really made a lasting impression in me were those people that I totally changed their lives through strength and conditioning. And that to me was much more satisfying in the long run. So I came in with the idea that I wanted to train the general public. And I wanted to train the general public in this type of high intensity interval resistance training idea that I had, the methodologies that I was using. And that fit very well within a 30-minute time frame. And I had planned to go that route, set up, the 30-minute time frame route. Mark in Efficient Exercise already had that frame set. And we already had the same philosophy of who do we want to train and why do we want to train those people. We thought exactly the same. Well, this is why we're training this group of people, because this is the most satisfying group of people to train. So yeah, it was just a very, very good marriage coming into and it was very serendipitous that they were at a time in their business cycle to where they were looking to pivot slightly. And, I was there with kind of a plan of how to get there. So it was a perfect marriage. And I'm so glad that I partnered with these guys, because it has been the bedrock of everything else Michelle and I have done. I mean, Efficient Exercise has been the steadfast, and it has allowed us, whenever you're in business and you have that one anchor business, the one foundational business that you can always count on, that's always going to be there and it's solid. For me, that's what Efficient Exercise is. It allows us then to take chances elsewhere. Because once you have that solid foundation and that's there and it's rock solid and it's steady, that allows you to take risks in other businesses. Now for us, again, we were just lucky, and those businesses that we took risks on actually took off. This is, in most instances, when you're an entrepreneur, maybe 1 in 5 of your ideas is going to take off and be a moneymaker for you. The other 4 you're going to have to, politely put to sleep and make it go away. It just so happened for us that everything that we started actually took root and took off. And in fact, we've actually had to ice a couple of businesses that were successful, but they just weren't successful enough relative to the other businesses that we had going, which is when we look back at it, we almost have to pinch ourselves. That's just kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
But, so that's a very long answer to your question.
No, that was great. That was great. Well, just to jump back a moment, just to make sure I understand this. So did you and Michelle save money in your jobs, and then your kids left, and then did you both quit and then start the businesses from there? Or did you actually start doing some stuff in the background, have sort of a foundation? Or
the planning we did was to save up some money. We didn't do any planning specifically business-wise. What we did was, because we were immersed in our careers too. I mean, we didn't have a whole lot of time to add entrepreneurship planning on top of what we were already doing. I mean, we were working some long hours. It was, the jobs were time consuming. But what we did was we made the promise to ourselves that yes, we would transfer out of corporate life, and to be able to do that, we would have to have some savings behind us to be able to pull that off. Unfortunately for us, we included the house that we had as an asset, and at the time that we were doing this planning, the housing market was screaming right on along and showed all indications that it would continue to scream on along. Funny enough, seemed like the moment we put the for sale sign in the yard, we had the housing market crash in 2008, and it crashed hard, and it crashed in the area that we moved from very hard. And in fact, I mean, it was gut check time for us at that point. Are we still going to do this?
Right.
Even as we see our housing prices tumble week by week by week, are we still committed to doing this? And we were. But that was a significant hurdle that we had to get over. So at the end of the day, when we were actually out of our corporate jobs and the house was sold, we were at an extensive shortfall compared to where we thought we were going to be. So, when we got kicked out into the great wide world, it was dicey. I mean, we were really, concerned there for a while financially. And being an entrepreneur, you have got to get used to that roller coaster. And that's probably the biggest change that I've seen between being in a corporate situation and being an entrepreneur is no matter how successful you are as an entrepreneur, there's always that financial roller coaster that's going on. And you've just got to get used to it. You've just got to have faith in what it is that you're doing. You have to have faith in yourself that you can pivot correctly and make minor corrections along the way to be able to, to get past those ups and downs. But it's just part and parcel of being an entrepreneur. That's what, that's the big thing. If you're going to be out on your own and doing this, you know what? You're gonna have those sleepless nights sometimes, figuring out how you're going to pay the bills and how you're going to be able to get to next month. And believe me, we had a lot of those. But at the end of the day, I always said I would much rather have that burden than know that really my corporate existence could end at any day, given the CEO of the company I was working for, his whims or the swings of the business cycle, because really that's what it comes down to. So I would much rather have more control over my financial well-being being an entrepreneur, even though that means, some more mental stress. But really the only way you avoid that mental stress being in the corporate world is you're able to blind yourself to the fact that you could be let go tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you may be doing a fantastic job. Your department may be doing fantastic, but the business itself may change. The financials of that business may change. It have nothing to do with you, but you're going to be a victim of that. So it does boil down to mindset. Some people are cut out for this ride. Other people, not so much. And that's not an indictment on, the other half, but you need to know what's involved with entrepreneurship before you dive into it. It looks all great. When you walk into the coffee shop here in Austin and I'm kicked back drinking a coffee, having a meeting with somebody, that's what people think of when they see entrepreneurship. Oh, this guy can do whatever he wants. He travels whenever he wants. Look at him. He's got a 10:30 a.m. meeting. He's just rolled out of his house, hanging out at the coffee shop near his house, having a meeting. I want some entrepreneurship, but what they don't see is all the labor that goes into that to get to that point. So yeah, it's not all rainbows and puppy dogs for sure.
To give people a bit more context, I think the businesses I understand that you're involved in are Efficient Exercise, ARX, PaleoFX, ID Life, and your blog Ancestral Momentum. Is that it, or is there additional ones that I'm missing?
That right now is it. Although each of those businesses continues to flower and continues to have offshoots to it as well. So to the extent that we can continue to grow these things. For instance, PaleoFX now has an add-on event that we're going to bring on for next year's event, and it's an entrepreneur's day-long workshop. Cool. So PaleoFX is now expanding into not just a 3-day event, but now it's a 4-day event, and I can see in the next couple of years it's going to be a week-long event here in Austin. So that's very cool. That's exciting, but it changes the business model again. And anytime you change a business model, it adds more work to yourself and to your employees. And it's a bit of a risk. Every time you do that, it's a bit of a risk. We don't know if this spin-off event will take off. All indications are that it will, but you never know, and it's a risk. But yeah, so each of those businesses is growing in its own unique way. Efficient Exercise is expanding. We'll be in Dallas and maybe a couple other places by next year, or in next year. ArxFit is expanding very, very fast. Sales are picking up. We're getting into more markets, and that kind of spread is exponential. So that's taking off, and so now we're faced with we have these businesses that we were in the past able to run almost as a mom and pop type organization, right? So, but now we're having to train people and bring in people and hire people into those positions that we were doing ourselves in-house. And that adds another layer of complexity to it. For instance, there's it's one thing to run a company, and it's quite another to manage people to run your company.
Right.
So now we're going to find out, okay, are we managers? Are we truly managers? Can we direct people instead of doing it ourselves? So that, that's a whole other challenge, and that's a whole other skill set. We don't know. I think I've pulled it off in the corporate world before, but it's a different dynamic. And so that's, again, one more hurdle to get over as an entrepreneur. It's another skill set that you have to take on.
How many, so what is it, do you have teams within each of these businesses, or is there one team that you leverage? How does that, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's right now it's a mix and match, right? So we have definite teams within each of those entities right now, but there is a lot of overlap. For instance, Mark and I are heavily involved in Efficient Exercise, ArcsFit, and PaleoFX.
Right.
In those three entities. Michelle and I are heavily involved in PaleoFX and ID Life. And so there's all this overlap that goes on between these entities and within our employees as well. For instance, our operations person is the operations person for both Efficient Exercise and for PaleoFX. So there's lots of overlap. In fact, our business meetings are kind of funny because it's like, okay, are we in the PaleoFX meeting? Put on your PaleoFX hats. It's all, and then, at Efficient Exercise, it'll change. The positions change slightly within these entities. And right now, they're small enough that can take place. I don't know. Next year, it's probably not going to be that way. There's going to be a definite split. Our operations person is not going to be able to handle operations for both Efficient Exercise and PaleoFX for very long. It's just going to become too much. And so there's going to have to be a split there. And that's good. That continual growth is good, but it's challenging. And it's very, very challenging. And for an entrepreneur, my skill set is more, if I look at from the PaleoFX point of view, my skill set is more visionary. So I get a good feel for how the paleo movement itself, what direction it's going. I have a very good feel because I network so much of who is the speaker, for instance, that no one has heard of yet in the paleo community who has an awesome message and needs to be heard. What panel can I create relative to what the current topics are in paleo that would make for a very, very interesting panel discussion? Those type of things I'm very, very good at. On the Efficient Exercise side of things, what am I good at? I'm very good at creating training programs. And I'm very, very good at leveraging what equipment is available to create those training programs, things like that. So I have to play to my strength on those and really leverage that as best I can within the time that I have during the day. But I think the smartest thing, if I've done anything smart as an entrepreneur, it's been to surround myself with people who can shore up where I'm very, very weak. And to be able to admit to myself that I'm weak in those areas and I need help. And I think that if I have seen entrepreneurs fail, they have failed because they think they can do everything or that they're good at everything. And it's kind of a self-deceiving thing. So if you have some initial success as an entrepreneur, you think, I've got this. I can be the marketing person. I can be the CFO. I can be the visionary. I can be all of these because I'm awesome. I can take, and it's just, it's just not true. You're awesome at a couple things, but you're going to suck at more things than you're awesome at. And that's just the way it is. Personally, I am not the money person. I am the last person you want balancing a checkbook. Just ask my wife, Michelle. It's a train wreck. You do not want me messing in the finances. And it's not that I don't think they're important. I think they're vitally important, but it's just not the way that I'm wired. I'm just not a numbers guy. I just don't think that way. And a lot of it is I'm just not, I don't know how to say this in a way that doesn't sound off-putting, but I'm just not money motivated, really. I'm motivated in a lot of ways, but profit and money is one of the lesser motivations that I'm in this for. And that's very cool for me personally, but for a business, that's a death knell. You can't have that in a business mindset. And I realize that. So I surround myself with people who are very, very good money managers and money forecasters. And so that I can look at a bottom line and say, are we above or below, and what's the trend? And that's pretty much all I need to know financially. And that's, as a visionary, that's all I need to know. Am I headed the right direction? Are we doing the right things? And is that reflected in the bottom line? If it is, fantastic, we keep going forward. If it's not, I have to pivot and figure out, where this went wrong, where it went off the tracks. So yeah, and that's, so I think if I've done anything smart, because believe me, I have made a ton of mistakes as an entrepreneur, but if I've done anything smart, it is to surround myself with people who are very strong where I'm weak.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
In a past interview, you I think PaleoFX was a lot younger, and at that time it wasn't a very successful financial venture for you and Michelle. I'm assuming that's different now.
It is. It is.
Explain to me, what was the turning point? When did you go, okay, this isn't making very much money. We need to turn this around. What were the things you did to make that happen?
It was more a change in philosophy or mindset for us. We went into PaleoFX. Yes, we had to make money with it to have it go on and to have it survive. But really, we went into PaleoFX to change lives. And, that sounds cliche, and that sounds a lot of things, but it's true. We went into it for that reason. And we did not go into it with a business plan. The first PaleoFX was almost just, hey, let's throw a party for our paleo friends and invite some people, and, we'll have some vendors or whatever, but we're just going to have a good time in Austin and get together. Had we gone in with a business model and with the intent of really maximizing profit, we would have gone about it on so many different levels. We kind of laugh about, PaleoFX succeeded in spite of the idiot moves that we did as business people. I'll just put it that way, and that's a testament to the strength of the paleo movement, that it kind of buoyed us and got us past that learning curve.
I think that's also a testament to the focus you put on adding value. Like you focused on changing people's lives rather than making money initially,
and we went into it with the right heart. And I think that you combine the right heart with the strength of the movement itself, and it saved itself, really. Our heart was there, it certainly was there. The business acumen was not going in it first. I mean, and Michelle had some experience at event planning, but not nearly to this size and magnitude. So she had an idea of what it took to event plan. But Mark and myself had no idea, none. I mean, if you would have told me that I would be in the event planning business 5 years ago, I would laugh at you. I know nothing about event planning, nothing. But here I am, co-founder and co-owner of PaleoFX. It's the largest paleo event in the world. And it's essentially one big event planning organization. So I don't know if you're familiar with the publisher of Success Magazine. His name's Darren Hardy here in the U.S., but maybe you've come across that name.
I haven't yet, no.
Well, Michelle and I were at an ID Life event, and this was, I believe, going into year 3 of PaleoFX. PaleoFX was struggling. It was a huge success as an event. It was not a success financially. We went to the ID Life event, and we got to speak with Darren Hardy. And he told us, it's great that you're doing this entity out of love and out of your hearts, and that's fantastic. He said, but the thing is this: making profit is not evil. It's not bad. It's none of that. Profit is simply energy. It's simply a transfer of energy. And if you choose, you can take that profit, that energy, turn it right back into PaleoFX, and you can affect so many more people. If your intent is to affect people's lives, the only way you're going to be able to do it on a mass scale is for this thing to become financially successful so it can grow. And I think hearing that from somebody who himself is super, super successful, and to hear it put in those terms, And to hear it put that, I know in my heart that profit is not bad. And it's probably, I knew these things in the back of my mind, but I needed somebody else to actually tell me that and to tell me it was okay. And Michelle too. And we just kind of went, what, that was the change in philosophy we needed to then go back and revamp PaleoFX from a business standpoint and, go back and streamline and revamp and do some things business-wise that would change the outcome of the event itself and make it profitable. And we did that. And, last year the event was not only in a huge success in the event side of it, but was a much better success financially. And I think we rolled the money from that event back into this event, and we finished the streamlining process of the business side of it. And I think that you will see in the next few years just this explosion in PaleoFX events and in the event itself. And that's going to transfer into reaching even more people, which is what we want to do. So yeah, it was a change in philosophy more than anything else.
What were the specific things you did to generate revenue? Was it just a case of charging more on the tickets, or were there other?
Well, for instance, it's creating ideas like the entrepreneur workshop that we added on at the first part of PaleoFX. I mean, that was something that we had talked about, previously about doing add-on events, and it seemed to us at that time that might be gouging people, and we were just like, no, they get plenty of networking and, all these other ideas at PaleoFX itself. And I think the philosophy changed to, there are people out there who are willing to pay and want to pay for more personalized one-on-one workshopping sessions with people who are obviously successful entrepreneurs in the health, wellness, and fitness space. There's a need and a want for that, and we need to fill that niche. And if we give good value to people, we should not feel bad about charging for it. And we started, shifting mindset in that way. And now if we charge these people for this, yes, we can pay the entrepreneurs that are coming in to actually, provide these workshops. These entrepreneurs can then have bigger staffs and pay for larger staffs. These people can then affect more people, and it's just a snowball effect going out. But it took me a while to wrap my mind around that philosophy. And I think you're going to see more and more of that philosophy going forward. The PaleoFX itself is not going to change that much. You're still going to get a ton of value for ticket pricing. We are still adamant about keeping the ticket price low relative to the value we give. And I think if you look at any other event of this magnitude, the ticket price is almost laughable compared to the amount of value you get out of it. And we really strive to keep that particular ticket price low so the masses can come in and see this. And then for those who are willing to pay a surcharge and an add-on charge to be able to have these more personalized events alongside PaleoFX, those are very profitable. And that allows PaleoFX itself to grow even larger. So you're going to see a lot more of that, and you're going to see a bit of a business shift towards the add-on events as well surrounding PaleoFX.
Did I spot there is some affiliate marketing you do on that side as well? Or is that trivial?
Yeah, it's very, very trivial. And it's something that so in entrepreneurship, you are constantly testing out new ideas. The affiliate type of thing is an idea we had. We were approached by some vendors who were like, we want to leverage the PaleoFX brand to get our product out. And then the idea was, okay, well, how do we best do that? So we're coming up with different affiliate ideas to send, for that purpose. We've test-driven allowing people to partake in affiliate ticket sales for PaleoFX. So there's different things that we have thrown out.
Did that work well?
All of them, did they work well? Were they profitable? Yes. Did they move the needle that much for us? No.
Right.
Not yet. And so if I look at it from a time expenditure to did it move the needle that much? Not wildly successful. We certainly didn't lose money on it, but I think we can we'll test drive other things that potentially will move the needle a lot more, like these add-on events. I mean, it's when you look at the time expenditure relative to income, the add-on events way surpasses anything else. It way surpasses.
That's really interesting.
So you would have the main PaleoFX event. The bulk of the income from the event comes from vendor floor sales. That is selling vendor space. And the next revenue source would be ticket sales. And I can see the add-on events probably eclipsing overall ticket sales at some point. It won't happen in this next event, but in events to come, ticket sales will probably drop to a 3.
Do you take kind of a, that is really interesting. Do you take kind of like a 80-20 approach to sales, to revenue streams? So, looking at what you just said there, the vendors being the, floor space being the, I think primary, if I heard that right, the primary revenue driver. Do you go, okay, so, 80% of our revenue is coming from this, therefore we should focus all our time and effort, or 80% of our time and effort in actually marketing and making this even more appealing and generating more money?
Yeah, sometimes it works out nicely that way. Other times it doesn't. I wish it was so easy like that, but it never works out that way. And it changes year to year too, which is, event planning 5-6 years ago when we came up with the idea, there is not a single person that I talked to before we went into this that would have said, oh yeah, that's a great idea. That's a money-making idea. Nobody would. I mean, the idea at that time was like a live event. Are you kidding me? There's no way.
Really?
There's no way. No way you can pull that off. You can pull it off, yes, but you're just going to work yourself to death and it's not going to be profitable. But, sometimes it's good to be naive. And we went into it totally naive. Again, we weren't looking for the next business model. I mean, we were quite happy doing what we were doing. And this just kind of fell into our laps. So, in saying that, it is sometimes to make the bottom line work, you have to put in a lot of time and effort for whatever that number 3 is that moves the needle to get you to that profitable bottom line, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, income revenue stream number 1 might only take 20% of your time. Income stream number 3 might take 80, but you're going to have to do that 80% of the work to get that number 3. Otherwise, the bottom line is not going to be there. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, we have to look at it from an overall perspective and not try to, divvy it down that far. I mean, at a certain point, like we were talking about the affiliate part of it, that's just, at a certain point, you have to pull the plug on stuff like that. That you're spending too much time on that doesn't move the needle enough. Mm. And not that they're not good ideas, but they're not great ideas right now relative to the bandwidth we have to put towards it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So if we have more bandwidth, we'll continue these programs, maybe even expand them. But right now, it is it's a bandwidth issue. We've got so many people on board, and we've got so many things that need to be accomplished. And you just kind of have to be ruthless in cutting the things that may be profitable but aren't profitable enough. Yeah. I mean, it's easy to cut the things that aren't profitable, right? Anybody can see that. But it gets a little bit tougher when you start cutting things that, yes, are making money, but they're not making money relative to the time you're having to put into it.
Yeah. When we remarried back and forth, you mentioned about how a lot of your business is done face-to-face, shaking hands, those kinds of sales meetings. How can you elaborate on that and where that takes place across your businesses?
Yeah, it just if you're going to train people for a living, it's pretty much going to be face-to-face. For me, envy probably isn't a good word, but I'll use it in this case. I envy people who train online and are able to just live the vagabond life. I have a couple of very good friends who I don't know if you haven't interviewed Kate Galliette on your show, you probably
Is that sorry, Kate?
Kate Galliette. Kate Galliette is a movement specialist here in the U.S. And she has worked her ass off to get to the point to where she can be totally online. Her business is totally online, and she can live pretty much wherever she wants and travels wherever she wants. She'll be in Colombia for the next 3 months traveling. And when I talk to her, I'm just like, oh my God, that sounds beautiful to me, but it's just not, much prefer, if I'm going to be training people, I want to see them face to face. I want to be able to lay hands on them. I want to be able to, and that's just me. Maybe I'm old school that way, but obviously doing that limits my ability to just pack up and travel and be the vagabond. And I'm okay with that. Running Paleo FX, just the nuts and bolts of it would not lend to being able to travel much of the year. I mean, we have to have face-to-face meetings. It's imperative that we have face-to-face meetings because it's so intricate. There's so many moving pieces going along. We have to get in a room with a whiteboard and hash stuff out. That just doesn't lend itself really to Skype or Google Hangout or whatever. It's just very tough to pull that stuff off. So that said, and even in the supplement sales, our supplements are such that they are not entities that you can just throw up a banner and expect to make a lot of sales. I mean, these are kind of complicated ideas that need to be discussed. Again, face to face is the best method. And I prefer face to face conversations with these things. And again, maybe I'm old school, but I just like that. And living in Austin is not a bad place to live either. So that's I'm not it's not exactly Columbia for 3 months, but I'm okay with it. And it's just kind of come about that way. So although we do travel, Michelle does more traveling for ID Life than I do. She does a lot more traveling for ID Life than I do, and she'll be out, another 10 days or so coming up here pretty soon. But it's just come about that most of our stuff has a brick and mortar-ish feel to it. I didn't, necessarily set out with that plan, but that's the way it came about. I kind of like, and it's, we've fallen into this lifestyle where we're planted in one place. Most of our business takes place face to face, but we do travel quite a bit.
So this is probably an obvious sort of question to come on to. So how do you, with all of that going on, you got 5 businesses, some of which I know a lot of is probably done virtually, on the internet, but there's plenty of face-to-face too. And you're also training quite a lot. When we spoke before, I know you're much more efficient than most probably conventional sort of high volume bodybuilding routines, but I would say you're slightly more volume than the once a week body by science type advocate. So how do you manage your time so effectively to make sure that you're able to prioritize? If I have one major strength, and that is to be able to surround myself with people who are a lot better than I am. My second strength is time management. I am very, very good about both creating management schemes and holding to them. It's nothing more than just a little bit of planning relative to what my day-to-day is going to look like. I mean, and it's basic stuff. I mean, it's, I run a sunrise calendar system, which is just an app. And I hold to that. And everything that I have, both training clients, business meetings, phone calls, Skype calls, podcasts, whatever it is, my time to write in the mornings, all of that stuff is scheduled out. But I'm not a slave to that schedule either. And just like, being able to pivot on a dime, if I get up in the morning and I have something pressing that's not necessarily on my schedule, if I've got hot emails I have to get to, writing's going to have to take a back seat today. So I have no problem bumping that around. So it's a combination of being scheduled and regimented, but yet having enough flexibility to maneuver within that. And that's one of those things. I think if I look at successful business people, I have modeled and talked with successful business people who are just super, super regimented, and they will have a laid out schedule, and they will not deviate from that schedule no matter what. And I see the value in that. I've also have very, very successful entrepreneurial friends who are just have no schedule whatsoever. And they just kind of, whatever comes up, they do it. And they seem to operate fine in this hair on fire, tackle whatever is the most pressing issue at the moment. I see that and appreciate it, but I can't do that either. So I had to kind of cobble together this middle road that worked for me. And I think, if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, you cannot model exactly what the other person is doing, or whoever you have identified as being a very successful entrepreneur. You can't model his exact day-to-day actions. What you have to model is his philosophy and mindset, because your specifics are not going to be his specifics. Your day-to-days are not going to be his day-to-days, but you can transfer the mindset and the philosophy. That's what you really need to model, because that's transferable anywhere and under any circumstance. So when I look at successful entrepreneurs, I'm not looking at their specifics necessarily. I'm looking at their philosophy and mindset, and to try to learn something from that, something that I can then apply, to my situation, because my situation is going to be different, totally different. So.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I agree with that, because for a long time, I think I tried to exactly model successful entrepreneurs. I'm a big Tim Ferriss fan, right?
Sure. Yeah.
He's got some great productivity hacks and things like that. But I found, whilst a lot of them have worked quite well, there's quite a lot that I've struggled to sustain. And I feel like that's because I am not Tim. I am different. I have different ways of thinking, different, I don't know. So I've had to kind of, like you say, apply that Bruce Lee framework, to keep what's useful, discard what isn't. So no, I think that's really good advice. I
have Bruce Lee books on my shelf. I have all manner of Bruce Lee reminders around me for that same purpose. Take what's useful, discard what is not. And that is my overriding philosophy in everything and anything. And that's really because, again, Lawrence, your specific day-to-days are going to be different than mine. And that's largely going to be because of our circumstance and situation. But our philosophies could be, tightly aligned.
For sure.
It's just, how does that philosophy play out given your situation? That's what really, really matters. And if you look at it, there are so many correlations between training, strength and conditioning training, and entrepreneurship. So many. I mean, there's correlations everywhere, that being one of them. If you know the underlying principles of strength and conditioning, you can pull those principles off anywhere. And it doesn't matter if you have machines, all body weight, all whatever. You can manipulate those philosophies to great success. But you can't mimic and copy what somebody else is doing, because they're in a different situation than you.
Yeah. I know you talk about philosophies and mindsets, and I agree with you, but I would, and I'm sure the listeners would be very interested to hear, what's your specific schedule for, in a business day. How do you mentioned, and I know it changes and it ebbs and flows. You mentioned a Sunrise app. Is that some application you use to like manage your time or something? I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah. So what Sunrise is, it's it will, how can you say, conglomerate across multiple schedules. So, for instance, I'm involved in 4 distinct businesses. So if I'm looking on my computer right now, as I have it set up, I have 4 different Chrome applications opened up, one specific to each of those businesses. And within that, I have a Gmail account for each of those businesses. Now, when I schedule something, say I schedule something in efficient exercise, that will go directly to my overall Sunrise calendar.
Oh, I love this. Okay.
I can do the same thing in any of those businesses, and I can set that up. So at the end of the day, I can look back and go, okay, I've got an ArcsFit meeting at 11. I've got EE clients at 12, 12:31, 1:30. I've got a PaleoFX meeting here. I'll be on a Skype. You can see how all this kind of funnels down. And by the way, anybody else would look at this and go, you're freaking crazy. That's a nuts way to organize things. But it works for me.
Why do you think they'd say that?
Well, I think they'd say, you've got so much going on. Can't you streamline that any better? And my answer would be, yeah, I probably can streamline it better, but this is what works for me in my mind, because when I'm open up in the Chrome window that has to do with efficient exercise, I am totally efficient exercise right now. All of my tabs are efficient exercise related. I am totally in the efficient exercise world. When I switch over to ID Life, I am totally in the ID Life world. All my tabs are set up for ID Life specific tasks. I am in the ID Life world. And same thing with with ArcsFit, with PaleoFX. It helps me set boundaries so that when I'm working on PaleoFX, I'm not drifting off into EE land. and vice versa. So
so I'm monotasking effectively like that.
Yes, yes, and I am king ADD. I mean, I can, which is great for creativity. It's fantastic for creativity, but if you're trying to get something accomplished, you have to focus. For me, those are effectively blinders.
Do you know, I have a burning question, and this is a concern I've had recently. So obviously this podcast has been going for a year. It's doing fantastically well. The growth is, I think, probably thousands of percent, which is awesome. But, currently it makes very little in the way of revenue. And I have a well-paid job in the City of London, which is very demanding and high pressure. And whilst I love doing this podcast, I love having conversation with you and people like you, it is an enormous workload. And that passion you have when you start a business starts to fade slightly because of the workload. Have you found that to be the case in any of the businesses you're involved in? And if that happens to you, what do you do? Do you just, okay, this is too much stress and it's not enjoyable enough to justify, therefore I'm going to drop it? Have you experienced that? Have you got any advice for that?
Yeah. So, wow, I had a conversation maybe 20 years ago with a windsurfing instructor of all things, right? And this is back. I was still in the corporate world and still immersed in that. And I was we were on vacation, and I was taking windsurfing lessons from this guy, and we're just kind of hanging out in between, and I'm just talking with him, and I said, I'm like, dude, man, I mean, it's like summer out here. You're just hanging out, teaching people to windsurf. I'm like, you have got it freaking figured out. I mean, you've got it. I mean, and he looked at me and he said, it might look that way on the outside, but he said, I love surfing and I love windsurfing. But since I started instructing surfing and windsurfing, I don't like it so much anymore. He's like, I used to be able to do it when I wanted to. It was a break. He goes, but now it's a job. He said, I took my passion and my love, and now it's a job, and now I see it like that. And we had this long kind of philosophical discussion about that. And that was the first time because I had always thought about, I want to get into training, do that as a job. And then, in talking with this guy, I was like, wow, I could see that happening. I could see loving to train, then being involved in an entity where all you're doing is training other people, and now it's a job, and now it becomes a hassle. Now your passion and your love has become a hassle.
Right.
And so that always stuck with me. And I was like, for the longest time I had thought, and I kind of used it as a crutch for a while too. It was like, I want to stay in corporate world, and I want to keep my hobby and my passion. I don't want to ever lose that. And I still had that mindset when I came into this business that I don't want to get stuck in one rut. In other words, I knew coming in that I was going to do more than just train people on the floor. Not that that's a bad profession. I think it's a beautiful profession. But I didn't want to burn myself out and lose the passion for my own training in doing so. So I knew coming in that I really wanted to diversify.
Right.
And go into other things. That were related to training, yes, but it wasn't me training other people 24/7, because I knew that was going to lead to burnout. And I see that, unfortunately, in so many trainers and coaches, because they don't go into this and diversify out. They don't train a little bit and then have other businesses that are related that they can then work on too, and then provide income. It's multiple revenue streams is what it boils down to. So your entire livelihood is not based on your passion, and then you start losing passion in your passion. Yes. And that's a horrible feeling. I mean, that's terrible. So both Michelle and I both came in with the idea that we were going to find alternate streams that were related to what we really loved, but they were alternate. And so we didn't get stuck in doing that one thing and lose the passion in what we really love doing. And that's easier said than done. I mean, I look in my own situation, and I've been very, very lucky in the fact that, the businesses that I started took root and they took off. I've been very, very lucky in the fact that I've had the bedrock of efficient exercise to be able to stand back on and to be able to take some risks otherwise. Those risks happen to take off, and I was able to diversify. So now I'm not training on the floor. I've backed off my personal training of clients on the floor to 2 days a week. And so I do it enough to be able to really love what I do, but it's not a burden to me otherwise. Right. So I've been able to pull off that balance very, very well. And so now I have this diversity of being, Paleo FX. I love Paleo FX, but if I did that 24/7, I would hate it. I have to have some variation. So, I can get a good training day in on Tuesday of training clients, and I'm ready for Wednesday to roll around when it's pretty much all Paleo FX. And then once that day's done, I'm rolling right back into another day of training clients. So I've got this diversity, and I went into it with the idea to have that diversity because I didn't want to get funneled into one thing and lose my passion doing it. So I guess, if I were to give advice to you or to anybody else, it's like, chase your passion, for sure, chase your passion, but make sure you have some business that's near what you do, but it's not exactly what you do. That way you have an alternate revenue stream. That way you're just not 24/7 doing that thing you love, because it will go from a passion to it's a job, just like my surfer friend. Now surfing and windsurfing is a job.
I completely agree. Passion. Yeah. Specialization is for insects, right?
It is, absolutely. It is.
No, that was really good advice, actually. So just on I love productivity, and I can talk about productivity hacks and tools and things like forever, which is really sad and geeky, but I love it. What are in your opinion, what are the sort of the top 3 tools that you're using or that you use personally to be more productive in your business?
Yeah, well, we talked about Sunrise. I could not go through a day without that app. I mean, it just really keeps me in line. I can set up notifications through Sunrise. It kind of keeps me on track. It lets me know what I've got scheduled, and that's one of the tools that I couldn't give up. This is almost a cliche now in the productivity circles, but Evernote, and I'm a big fan of Evernote Professional. I've got that, and notes, writing, everything goes into Evernote. And I've got Evernote on my computer. I've got Evernote on my phone. Those are the big 2. I do have a Streak, which is a client management tool.
Yeah.
I have that on Gmail, and we talked prior that I have 4 different Gmail accounts, one for each of my businesses that I'm involved in, and I have client management systems for each of those particular businesses, and I use Streak on that. It's nothing earth-shattering. Those are pretty basic tools, and between the 3 of those, that probably comprises 80-90% of my productivity hacks. If I have any other productivity hacks, are more philosophical than they are actually, tools. Just the fact that I am fairly regimented in what my day looks like schedule-wise, but I'm always able to shift without much guilt, depending on, if something comes up.
What does the basic template look like? I know I asked it earlier, and then I got you to go into the Sunrise. So without the adjusting, I suppose. Yeah.
So the basic template, I get up early in the morning. One of my philosophies is I want to beat my competition up out of bed. And whether or not that means anything or at all, it gives me a slight kick in the pants or a slight, personal psychological edge. I do probably counter to what any other, for instance, what Tim Ferriss would tell you is to not tackle email right off the bat. Sure. But I do. I get up in the morning and I at least look at every one of my businesses and see if there's any emails that I need to handle first thing right off the bat.
Okay.
And I do that. If I'm going to write, it is after that. I'll do some writing, some creative work, which unfortunately for me, if there's something that I miss, it's having big blocks of time that are devoted to creative outlets. I simply don't have that right now. That may change in the future, but right now it's the business concerns are number one. And so, I'll write for a while, and then I'm starting my face-to-face day, and that's either training clients or my face-to-face meetings start off, and those last most of the day. I eat pretty much, A, when I'm hungry, and B, when I can. Within my house, it's because I know that I'm going to be in a hurry a lot and I'm rushed. If you go in my house, you don't find a lot of trash. So I don't make it easy for me to eat bad foods. Whenever we do cook, we always cook in excess so that we have leftovers, so that's always an option.
How do you, just on the diet side of things, how do you prepare food each day, or do you eat out? Like, how do you manage that?
Yeah, Michelle and I, because of the positions we're in, we entertain a lot, both in the house and outside of the house. And we just always make extra. So when we make food, it's always with a mindset of, I want, 2 or 3 lunches out of this. Not just dinner tonight, but I want 2 or 3 lunches out of it, and or breakfast or whatever. So we plan for that ahead of time. And that's just a habit that we've gotten in. So we always have some form or fashion of leftovers in the house. I happen to have set it up to where I live a block away from where our headquarters is. So my commute time is nil. It's a short walk. So I've taken that out of my daily time expenditure. I have zero commute. Most of my meetings take place at coffee shops that I can walk to. And I'm very lucky to live in a place where I'm, surrounded by very, very good coffee shops. Again, our headquarters is right here. Zero commute time. If there's one thing that I find that I have to fight for, that I absolutely need in my life, is time to train. And so there's two things that I will absolutely fight for. Number one is my time daily, and it is almost daily, to train, and the other is sleep. I will get very, very nasty if I think either of those two is going to be compromised. I'll just put it that. That's how important I think both of those are for everything, because everything in my life stems from A, being able to recover, and B, being able to train. And when you're talking about recovery, the number one tool for recovery is you have to have adequate sleep. And I'm talking 8 or 9 hours a night. And that's what I strive for. Does it always happen? No, it doesn't always happen. I don't always get 8 or 9 hours of sleep. I don't always have the ability to train. Even with having access to ArxFit, there are some days some days are just incredibly crammed and intense. But those days are few and far between. And when I say that I train every day, I don't want to give people the impression that I am super, super intense every day. When I say train, some days may be very intense, but some days may be just, movement, just working on movement. And I set 45 minutes aside, and it may be with a barbell dumbbell, but it's light and it's more movement based. Yeah, so you have to be careful with word choice, and I say train in my lexicon. That's me being on the gym floor or me being out on the field doing something. But my intensities vary wildly throughout the week.
Yeah, no, I got it. We touched on this earlier, but just want to get into this a little bit more. So there are many perspectives, but two perspectives on starting a business are to quit your job and build a business whilst living on savings, which is akin to jumping out an airplane and building a parachute on the way down. And the other perspective is building one on the side and to transition only over once the income is sufficient. The latter being, I guess, challenging in terms of balancing a job and a business, much like I do currently. What do you think is best and why?
I've seen very successful entrepreneurs go at it both ways. I think it's going to boil down to what business you're transferring into. Michelle and I guess if those two choices, if you look at what we did the save up and jump route. But that worked for us. I mean, that was really the only thing we could do relative to where we were located at that time and relative to where we wanted to finally end up. So we had on top of that cross-country move as well. So, and primary to us was, where were we going to live? That was the number one priority, was where we going to live. We knew we wanted to live in Austin, Texas. And there was a number of reasons for that, but we knew we wanted to live in Austin. And then it was, okay, how are we going to get there? And then we started, figuring it out from there. But I have very good friends, very good entrepreneurs who have done the other route. I mean, they've built a business on the side while they're working in a corporate job until they reach that position to where they felt they could move over.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a trainer on the floor right now who did just that. I mean, he worked at a hospital full time, started training for us, and he's as his clientele base started to grow, he was able to back off a little bit at his corporate job until he got to the point where he was able to cut the tie completely. So now he both trains on the floor, and he's got an alternate revenue stream through ID Life. So he's got both, and so both of those got him to the point where he could completely bow out of the corporate world. So there's all number of mix and matches, to that scenario as well. And I think it's just, again, you have to look at your situation. You have to map out where you want to be, and then you have to, match philosophies. And, a lot of times, again, you're not going to be able to perfectly match the actions of what somebody's done, but you can always match philosophies and put those philosophies to work. In your case, you're going to be one of those guys that just looks like it's lining up to where you're going to be building side by side.
Yeah.
And that's what it's going to look like for you. And that's cool. I mean, like I say, there's very successful people who have come at this from both ends of the spectrum and everywhere in between. I've even known entrepreneurs who will have fully entrepreneurship and will have to dive back into corporate life for a while to build that bank account back up, while they're, spinning the plate on their entrepreneurial endeavor on the side, jump back out of corporate world and dive back in. I mean,
that's difficult.
Yeah, it's very difficult. But if your end game is to finally break free and move out into entrepreneurship, the name of the game is do what you got to do. Yeah. Sometimes, if you have to dive back in as a contractor, which is, what this particular friend I'm thinking of had to dive back in as a contractor into corporate life. Didn't particularly want to do that, but that was kind of the only choice at the time. Mm. And so as an entrepreneur, you pony up and you say, okay, this is what I need to do. It's not going to be forever. I'll dive back in, do what I need to do, and then I can come back out on the other side and continue on my entrepreneur route.
So it's a funny thing, especially in my industry. I'm in sales. So
yep.
It's funny because when things are going really well and, you're earning good commission, it's easy to lose sight of your other interests, especially when your lifestyle improves. Or say improves is a loose word, but you've got more, you can do more things. But at the same time, when the job's going badly in sales, I don't know if you have much sort of sales experience, but I suppose you do in your businesses. Yeah. But it's either crap or really good. There's no kind of middle ground. Yeah. And I found that, when it was bad, you'd think, oh, that would motivate me to do the corporate warrior stuff. But actually, I just felt really shitty, And actually, when things are going really well in my job, it's like remembering that, okay, this is great, but this is your passion. This is what you really want to do, and to let that energy transfer into that. But I find it's got I don't know if I've kind of contradicted myself there, but I do struggle with that sometimes. It's like, it doesn't work out like you think it will,
Yeah. I mean, entrepreneurship takes so much faith. I mean, it really does, because you don't have anybody to catch you when you fall. I mean, if you're out on your own, and I'm not saying that that you are your own entity. I mean, it gets even more complicated when you have employees in and you've moved out. And, if this entity fails, it's not just me that's failing. Now I've got, business partners, and it just gets very, very convoluted. So, yeah, you really have to have a lot of faith in what you're doing. And, I don't want to get too woo or philosophical. It takes a certain level of spirituality too. And I'm not saying that you have to be, you have to believe in something, right? So personally, I've got spiritual beliefs that I fall back on. I'm like, essentially the universe is going to take care of me ultimately. So I have nothing to fear.
Yeah.
I can go out and do it. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to get kicked around. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to get skinned up, because I certainly have financially in the entrepreneurial game. I've certainly had sleepless nights. It's a struggle, but I know in my core that I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
There's going to be fights. There's going to be this. But I think that those entrepreneurs that have that belief fare better than people who are just I hate to bring up atheism, or but people that think that there's no end to it all, or
like, is that nihilism? Is that the right?
Yeah. And so I think I've seen those entrepreneurs that have some belief in something, and it doesn't matter what it is, but they have some underlying belief in a greater good or a greater entity. They seem to fare better, because there's going to be times you have to fall back on that, because that's all there is. It can go south in a hurry, and if you don't have that ultimate belief in something, you will do the logical thing and say, I better go for something that's a little more safe on the that's not entrepreneurial and a roller coaster, and that's cool. I have very good friends who are very happy in corporate gigs, very content with it. And, there's a lot to be said about that. There's a lot to be said about having that, working for a very, very solid company that's a good company, and that's fine for them. And I think it's great. It's just, personally at my core, that was not me. I just did not. And it wouldn't matter if it was in the pharmaceutical industry. I could have worked for the most fantastic company that was ever, that was ever on the face of the earth. And I still would want to bust out on my own and do my own thing.
Yeah, I think I'm wired in a similar way to you in that respect.
Yeah.
And we're coming up on the hour. How much time do you have from now?
I'm good.
You're good? Because I just want to cover. Yeah, I just want to cover off there's a few more things. This is a question, a couple of questions from that you saw on the Facebook post there, sort of last minute. So actually, my girlfriend has a question for you. She'll be starting a business in the near future in probably the dog grooming arena.
Sure. Yeah.
And she was interested in your experience using offline marketing and advertising strategies, and which ones you feel. I know this is highly subjective, probably, but which ones you've had the most success using?
So the answer is yes. In the efficient exercise realm, this is where this plays into, and it would probably be, more related to what she does. So we are part of it. Wherever there is efficient exercise, at least here in Austin, it is in an associated neighborhood within that area. And I'm sure this is the same in London as well as it is in Austin, but each neighborhood will have a paper or an online group. So there's some tie within those neighborhoods somehow. And I've seen this in my travels too, because I'm always curious about it. Every time I travel someplace, no matter where it is, my first thought is, if I were to put an efficient exercise here, where would it be? And so I, just kind of been walking around the cities and looking around and getting a feel for the demographics and talking with the people. But in those type of service businesses, whether it's efficient exercise, whether it's training, whether it's dog grooming, whether it's hairstyling, nails, anything where there's more person-to-person contacts, there's always going to be in that neighborhood some kind of a magazine, some kind of an online group. It's just ubiquitous all around. I would say, number one, do we market to those? Absolutely. Those are very, very effective for us because,
those types of services, at least starting off, that's where 90% of your clients are going to come from. Until you get much better known and you're very good at what you do and that word gets out, then you're not beholden so much to that particular neighborhood. But at least starting off, you need to get into the neighborhood organizations and get that's where you grow your roots. So for efficient exercise in Austin, we don't have to do that as much. In fact, we market very, very little at this point. But it took us, 15 years to get to this point. Now, when we go into a new market where people don't know who we are, those are the number one organizations we go for is the local organizations and the networking organizations within those neighborhoods as well, because there's always business networking organizations too. And I know it's probably different, where you're at than in the U.S., but I'm sure they have the same type of setup.
Oh, for sure.
But those are almost mandatory if you're doing a service type gig.
Right, cool. You had a question from Corbin Thomas. Is he a friend of yours or someone?
He is, yeah.
I think he was just taking a mick out of your shorts in your picture. But he asked you about curls in the rack or out. Is he talking about curls in a squat rack and how that annoys people, right? Because
it's the ongoing joke. So, so I would say curls in the rack and out of the rack, but curls every day. That would be my answer to Corbin.
Brilliant. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. It was good. Cool. Okay. So what is the book or resource you most often recommend to business owners that you speak to?
Oh, wow.
Or books, plural.
Yeah. Oh, for business. The
first that comes to mind might be easier.
Yeah. I think 48 Laws of Power is probably, Robert Greene's books, or actually any of Robert Greene's books, his success books. Ironically enough, the book that Robert Greene did with 50 Cent, and I can't remember exactly, it was like the 50th Law or something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember the title either, but I know the one you mean.
Yeah, it's a tremendous book, and believe me, I know your listeners are going, what? And I had to be almost coerced to read this book. I mean, I was like, look, I don't have time, number one, to read really, really good books. So why am I going to waste my time reading this? But it was, from a business perspective, it was one of the best books I have ever read.
Wow.
And the reason why it is so important for an entrepreneur is because you see a guy who, I don't know what ideas you have about 50 Cent, and you could love him or hate him. He's kind of like Donald Trump in the U.S., right? I mean, you can loathe the guy, but you have to respect his business acumen. I mean, same thing with 50 Cent. Here is a guy that came from absolutely nothing. He had nothing. And, he found a way, and yes, it was illegal. It's the start to get out of that situation. But the thing that I appreciate about him is, even though his start was in, illicit drug sales, but that wasn't his end point. And he knew going in that this isn't going to be my end, but this is the only thing I have to leverage right here, right now, to get out of the situation. I've got one thing to leverage. And he did. And he was very, very good at it because he had some excellent business insight. He knew how to leverage people. He knew how to leverage the situation, and he jumped out of it when he could and immediately moved on to something else. He knew that wasn't the end game. And so I would, not the specifics of what he did, obviously, but the mindset that he brought to it is what was just fascinating to me. And it's a book it's a book that shows that you can make it against all odds too. And that's kind of a cliche now, but really, when you're an entrepreneur and there's those dark nights, you're going to have a steely focus and a belief and a mindset that says, this is going to pass. It's going to be all right. And I've got a plan to get from point A to point B and get through this. So for that reason, it's probably one of the best books I've ever read, business wise.
Good stuff. I'll find the title and get it in the show notes. What do you set goals? How do if you do set goals, how do you set them? Do you look at them every day? What kind of rituals do you have around goals?
I set both. Do I set goals? Yes. But I do not necessarily celebrate when I meet them because I immediately set another goal. So, and those goals are short term. They are, I would not say easily reached, but I'm not one to set like a 3-year plan, for instance. If I would have set a 3-year plan 3 years ago, it would have totally gone off the skids. I set more immediate goals, and those goals are, how can I say, they're not solid. So, in other words, I don't set like in the next 3 months I need to have made $50,000, something like that. That's not the type of goal I set. In my philosophy, the money will take care of itself as long as the philosophical side is taken care of. So, my goals are more around finding the next best PaleoFX panel, for instance, or creating a better training protocol, or things like that. Those are the types of goals that I set, and I let the money take care of itself because it will.
Yeah.
I mean, if you add value to people's, and this is what it boils down to ultimately. If you add value to people's lives, the money is going to be there.
Yeah.
Because essentially you're transferring energy to them in the form of value. They're going to transfer energy to you in the form of money, and that's the cycle.
Do you know?
And that's the way I look at it.
I love that, and it just carries on from something. Have you heard of a guy called Peter Sage, a serial entrepreneur? Yeah.
Yep. Sure.
I heard him say something fantastic, which is that people don't think about money the way they should. If you want to get muscles, you want to build strength, you need to go and work out, right? It's like if you want to create a fire, you need wood, and with money, it's like you need to add value to get money. You can't just go, how do I make money, and forget that you've got to add a shitload of value to people for them to want to pay for that, or and I know that people are listening to this thinking, well, duh, but I think a lot of people don't look at it that way.
Yeah,
they're looking for the magic bullet just to get an income, right?
No, I know a lot of people don't think of it that way, and that's when you talk to budding entrepreneurs, and you're just and you listen to the ideas and you listen to the reasons behind why they want to do what they want to do, and then you go back and you go forward 3 years and you see where they are now. Those ones that come in with the idea that I've got this idea to create value. I know how I can better people's lives, and this is the idea. That person ultimately is going to make it. They may have to pivot, they may have to shift, they may have to change their idea slightly, whatever, but they come in with that philosophy and that mindset of adding value. If you have somebody that comes in and says, I want to make money, a lot of times they fail miserably because making money is first and foremost not adding value. So they're thinking, make money, how do I do that? It's not always there, but if they come in with, I've got an idea to add value, the money will come, and they're off and running. But that is, if I were to look at philosophies of an entrepreneur that are the mindset of a successful entrepreneur, that's first and foremost. They number one, they ask, how can I add value? And they worry about the money later. The money's going to figure itself out. But the value part, you better have that figured out beforehand.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting. Whenever I interview a guest, I try and improve every time. So I try and make the show notes a little bit better. I try and be a bit better with the marketing, a bit more effective. And as you saw, I sent you that email with trying to make it really easy for you to share, which I never did when I started. And I learned that from Entrepreneur on Fire, John Lee Dumas, who's fantastic.
Sure, yeah. Yep.
And because you have a good business mind, you knew what to do. You shared it. It's funny because I sent it to Doug, and Doug's amazing, but he doesn't necessarily have that. And I hope he doesn't listen to this and take this the wrong way, because I don't mean that at all. But he's not as savvy as perhaps you are on that side. And I'd be interested on a kind of a social media front. How do you leverage social media in your business? I know I probably should have asked you this earlier. And how do you manage that? Because I find social media such a pain in the ass sometimes.
So first of all, I don't let it. First of all, I don't let it
encroach on the real work that I need to do in a day, and that's number one. So it's easy to get caught up in the minutia and I'll just say the minutia of social media, and I put a limit on it. Number one. Number two, I come at it with a philosophy of I am first and foremost a networker, and I think if I step all the way back, what are the things that I am good at? One of the top things is networking. I know people. I know who is good at what. I know within the realm of, let's just say, big tent paleo, big tent strength and conditioning. I know who is good at what aspect and who has unique knowledge and the up and comers and all of this. So when I look at social media, I am just keeping in touch with my network, and that's really it. Obviously I keep in touch with my family that way. My family's connected through social media. I have an extensive family, so it's easy to keep up with them that way. But I look at social media primarily as me just, keeping up with my network. Just, hey, what's going on with this person? What's going on with that person? What are the trends? So I use social media in that way. And so I use social media for more of a 30,000 foot view than I do, a very, very narrow view of what's the latest drama between Joe and Jane. And it's easy to get sucked into that, right? But I'm not into the minutia. I'm back out at the 30,000 foot level. And it's a good way for me to see trends as well. I mean, especially in the paleo fitness, wellness world, it's good for me. And it's easy for me to spot trends very, very quickly just by, keeping up a little. And it doesn't take that long for me in a day. And I don't, unlike other successful entrepreneurs, I mean, this may work for them very, very well. I don't say that, between 10 and 11, I'm going to be doing social media. That doesn't work for me. It just, some days I'll spend 20 minutes on social media. Some days I'll spend 2 hours. I mean, it just kind of depends on how it floats into my life.
Do you do any automated, like, Hootsuite or anything like that?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
No, that's personally I don't. As a business, PaleoFX uses some of those tools. But and there's a difference too between my personal use of social media and the business use of the business entity presence of, say, PaleoFX or Efficient Exercise or ArcsFit, which are all entities in social media as well. But I'm just speaking, from my personal side. So personally, no, I don't use any automated. And that, that's a personal decision. I guess maybe I've been on social media long enough to where I can feel an automated post. It has that feel to it, right? And I just personally, it's just not me. It's just not what I want to use social media for in the personal sense. I mean, it's almost a necessity from a business standpoint. But again, I'm able to. I'm at a point, and we have people to manage the business side of it. To where I can stand back and have a personal social media presence that doesn't involve that.
Yeah, no, I agree. So what's the best way, Keith, for people to learn more about you and your different businesses? I have this in the show notes as well, but...
Yeah, I think the easiest way to find out what I do and to contact me is through my blog, which is Theory to Practice. And the actual website for Theory to Practice is at ancestralmomentum.com, which you can obviously see that marketing is not one of my strong suits either. I have to surround myself with very good marketing people. So that's my personal blog. The thoughts and feelings that are expressed on that blog are my own and not necessarily those of Efficient Exercise or PaleoFX or any of the other entities that I'm involved with. But that's the way to get up with me personally. From a business standpoint, PaleoFX at paleofx.com, Efficient Exercise at efficientexercise.com. You can see our marketing people had a good play in these website names, unlike my personal site. And at arcsfit.com, arxfit.com. You can also find through my Theory to Practice blog. The easiest way to get to my ID Life stuff is through Theory to Practice as well. Theory to Practice, you can see how I tie all these various entities together into one semi-cohesive entrepreneurial effort. It's not always as smooth as it might look like from the outside, but it's worked so far.
Cool. Excellent stuff. Cool, Keith. Well, I have all of this in the show notes, and thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I really like your attitude toward business and what you do. I think it's great, and I've learned a lot. So I will. Was it your time? 2?
It's 1:15 my time.
Okay,
it's
cool.
Time for a workout.
Well, enjoy, and as I said, when everything's live, I'll reach out, and I guess hopefully we'll meet face to face soon.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, Lawrence. Have a good one.
Nice one. Take care, Keith. Cheers.
Take care.
Bye.
Yep.
For all of the show notes and resources mentioned in this episode, please head on over to corpwarrior.com. That's CORP warrior.com, and that will redirect you to the homepage, which is 15minutecorporatewarrior.com.
This podcast is brought to you by hituni.com. That's hituni.com. Hit Uni is an e-learning course provider specializing in high-intensity training for personal trainers and for people looking to learn how to apply the principles of HIIT to their own training for best results. It comes highly recommended by Body by Science author Dr. Doug McGuff, Discover Strength CEO Luke Carlson, MedX Precision Fitness owner Blair Wilson, HIIT expert Drew Bay, and the founder of Living La Vida Low Carb, Jimmy Moore. It was founded by author and high-intensity training master personal trainer Simon Shawcross. Simon has 15 years experience and has supervised over 15,000 workouts. Due to a combination of demand and a lack of quality in certification programs in the fields of high-intensity training, Simon and his team spent the last 3 years developing top-quality courses that will educate fitness professionals and participants to enable them to train individuals and themselves in the safest manner and produce best results. HIIT Uni has been put together using knowledge from the very best minds in the field of exercise, including Skylar Tanner, James Steele, Dr. Doug McGuff, Drew Bay, John Little, Mike Mensa, Arthur Jones, Dr. Ellington Darden, and many more. The courses are delivered online through the website, where you can learn via a variety of multimedia materials at your own pace and convenience. The online video presentations are engaging and make learning fun. Online support and a discussion forum are provided to resolve any sticking points and enable you to share ideas and ask for help. Depending on whether you want to become a personal trainer, are already a personal trainer who wants to upskill, or if you're a keen HIIT participant that is eager to learn more about how you can apply HIIT to your own workouts for maximum benefit, there are several great value courses to choose from. I am personally partway through the PT course and I'm really enjoying it. I primarily wanted to do the course to learn more about how to apply HIIT to my own training for better results. The courses are really easy to follow and each section is organized into bite-sized chunks that give you a real sense of achievement after you complete each one. To get your exclusive Corporate Warrior 10% discount on any course you purchase, simply head on over to hituni.com, that's hituni.com, and enter the coupon code CW10, that's CW and the number 10. So again, head on over to hituni.com, hituni.com, pick your course and enter the coupon code CW10. Thanks very much for your support.